His stance hasn't changed since the day of his arrest in 2004. Steven Rios says he did not kill Jesse Valencia. But you're probably wondering why we're bringing the Rios case back into the spotlight after all these years. It's because we have new voices to bring you in this case, voices you've never heard from before. You've never heard from his ex-wife, who saw Rios come home on the morning of Valencia's murder. And you've never heard from his ex-in-laws, who also say he's not guilty of this crime. They know you may not believe them when they say he's innocent. But there is one thing that's indisputable. Two juries say Steven Rios killed Jesse Valencia, and that is nearly impossible to overturn.
He was just lying around in his boxers.
His injuries are consistent with the upper body and throat area.
So I saw it for 2 seconds.
Trying to find out what happened to him.
I love you, Jesse.
It's just not fair. We're not going to rest until we find out what happened.
Killed Jesse Valencia.
No, I did not. Like I said, I didn't have any involvement in Jesse's murder. Just want to get back to living my life.
In the skyline of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, sits the state prison, the home of former Columbia police officer Steven Rios.
The people who really matter know that I'm innocent, and it's just, getting through this day and the next day.
Steven Rios is here because not one, but two juries say he killed Jesse Valencia.
The jury find the defendant, Steven Arthur Rios, guilty of murder in the second degree.
Valencia was a 23-year-old MU student. Rios admitted to a homosexual affair with him. Police found Valencia's body on East Campus on June 5th, 2004. Neck wrung, throat slashed by a serrated knife. In the hours after the murder, nobody had any idea Steven Rios had a sexual affair with the victim. Rios even reported on duty to the very murder scene the juries convicted him of committing. After police arrested Rios, the jurors largely convicted him on the theory that he killed to keep his wife and police chief from finding out about sleeping with Valencia on duty. It happened twice. A second jury convicted him in 2008 after a judge threw the first verdict out.
Perry Mason and Clarence Darrow could not have got him off.
Morley Swingle says it was an easy case to try.
Valencia, that was on the 14th of May.
There was motive to hide his affair. There was DNA.
The DNA evidence is what really nailed him. This is a guy that the evidence was overwhelming that he was guilty.
Rios also threatened to commit suicide twice after his name became public. And so a judge sentenced Rios to life in prison, first in Minnesota.
Mine is a terrible thing to waste.
Before his transfer to Sioux Falls. The state penitentiary sits at the top of this hill. It's just down the road from Falls Park, which locals apparently say is the best spot in Sioux Falls to see the prison. This is a beautiful city and a beautiful state, but as I found out today, there is nothing beautiful inside those bars. There are no cameras allowed in this prison, but we drove 8 hours to sit with Rios face to face. For 2 hours, he told us repeatedly that he did not kill Jesse Valencia. But this is the first time he's spoken to the media since his second conviction.
For the past almost 9 years, I could have beat my head on the wall, and just thinking about it now, and like I said, it's a surreal experience.
He's tried to appeal again, but a judge denied that this summer, so now his support team is speaking out. His ex-wife, remarried and scorned by the affair, but still convinced he's not a killer.
Things don't add up for me, and never really have.
First phone conversation after the first trial, he called.
And his ex-in-laws.
The things that Steve did do were not good things. So you're not necessarily going to like him very much, but that doesn't make him a murderer.
Defense attorney Gillis Leonard tried to argue in the second trial that the DNA evidence didn't prove murder, just sex. There was, after all, another suspect's DNA on Valencia. That was a sexual partner who'd slept with Jesse fewer than 48 hours before the murder.
When they first disclosed it, they didn't say, publicly that it wasn't a mixture with, another suspects who had just met Jesse that week.
He wasn't the only suspect either. Public police records show another boyfriend of Valencia's failed a voice stress test and requested police to give him another one. Those tests are inadmissible in court, but he wasn't interviewed again after Rios entered the picture. Rios supporters also question the timeline of events. Police timed the route from the police department garage, where Rios was with officers until a little after 4:45 a.m., to the crime scene, and back to Rios' house. Police say it's about 10 minutes of drive time with no traffic in the middle of the night. His wife says he came home around 5:15 or so. That's 30 or 45 minutes to drive, clean up, and get rid of the murder weapon. Police never found it. Plausible? The jury's thought so. His ex-wife didn't.
I was there at our house, awake, saw him come home. He wasn't covered in blood. He didn't have scrapes. He didn't have bruises. He wasn't, what happened to the clothes? What happened? Where did he clean up? Those things don't make sense to me. So even if you think that I have some ulterior motive and I'm lying about things, look at everything else.
Nothing found at his house. Nothing found in his car. He allegedly slit a young man's throat during a violent action. There were no scratches on him.
How did he drive across town without getting the blood in his car and then get back to his house? In a 45-minute window? He would have to be Superman.
Anybody that said he had to be Superman, I would welcome being against them in court, because 24 jurors have heard this evidence, and 24-0 have said, yeah, the timeline works.
Jurors also found no credibility in Valencia's neighbor, Christopher Ryan Kepner, who testified he heard a disturbance next door on the morning of the murder. He originally told police he heard the commotion between 3 and 4:30 a.m., when Rios was still on the roof of the garage.
Frame of about 2 to 5 minutes. Just bumping, just like somebody stumbling and kind of bumping into the wall, like, stop it,
He told the Columbia Tribune the same thing, but Kepner had been drinking that night. In court, where it mattered, Morley Swingle got him to give an expanded time frame.
Because a man who had 3 vodka tonics and 2 pints of beer isn't sure what time he heard thumping in the middle of the night.
Rios claimed in his latest appeal that he wasn't fairly represented because a Columbia Tribune reporter never took the stand to testify about Kepner's original time frame. It didn't work, so Rios is still in South Dakota, locked up. Here's what Jesse Valencia's mother said after the first trial.
And it's over. We got him.
Not if Rios can help it. In part 2 of this series tonight at 10, Danielle McCarthy will bring you more from Rios' ex-wife and ex-in-laws and why they're standing by Rios after all these years.